James Jaws Byrne is an old Dublin gangster. He played a role in one of the bloodiest gangland feuds Ireland has ever seen, analyzed in this piece. A deadly Kinahan-Hutch feud that entered public consciousness when Byrne was discovered to have helped orchestrate a hit on John Hutch, an innocent brother to his adversary Gerry "the Monk" Hutch. The attempt to kill John was just a little part of a greater and more violent war that had already killed so many on both sides. Byrne had long been associated with the notoriety of the Kinahan cartel. His son, David Byrne, was one of the victims in one of Ireland's most shocking gangland murders to date. That at the Regency Hotel on February 5, 2016. Apparently carried out by Hutch family associates, it would later become clear the attack marked a major turning point in the escalating feud between both the Hutch and Kinahan gangs. The Regency Hotel attack, in which 5 masked men stormed a boxing weigh-in event, killing David Byrne and injuring others, rattled the underworld to its very foundations. Already one of the most powerful with international connections, the Kinahan cartel sought swift and very violent revenge at the murder of David. Mourning his son, James Byrne buried himself further in the feud, seeking revenge but also some semblance of justice. On September 2, 2016, Byrne and his gang probably staged the most high-profile killing in that gruesome campaign when they engaged the services of hitman Michael Carroll, a Sisuned criminal, aged 45, to murder John Hutch, Gerry Hutch's elder brother. John was 65 years old, living in Drumalee Park, North Dublin. Carroll was armed with 2 revolvers, a Walther PP pistol and a Morocco revolver. He was instructed clearly to kill and nothing more. But the exercise turned out to be a very messy and disorderly attempt. As recorded, Carroll fired 6 shots in the direction of the back garden of John Hutch, where John and his daughter Amy stood. As shots cracked out around him, John and Amy failed to find shelter as the hapless hitman missed killing them. The Hutch family was traumatized by the attack, but was alive. Like most after such an attack, John Hutch spoke to the Gardaí, stating the fear that had plagued his family for so long. "They tried to get me. All members of my family are targets in this feud. They have killed my son and my brother." John Hutch was no stranger to loss. His son, Gerry Hutch, had been murdered earlier that year in May, also a victim of the violent Kinahan-Hutch war. The 36-year-old father was shot dead in the middle of the day in Dublin's north inner city. The murder of this young father was a stark illustration of how ruthless and public the gangland war had become. His other brother, Eddie Hutch, 58, was also butchered on February 2016, exactly days after the shooting at Regency Hotel in revenge for killing David Byrne. The killing of Eddie was very public, and it clearly outlines a message from Kinahan cartel that they are methodically killing the Hutch family. Vera is the wife of John Hutch. She almost lost her life too when there was an assassination attempt on her husband also. When she recalls that spine-chilling moment, she says, "I still recall bullets flying above my head. They are after trying to get Johnny." Her words underscored constant fear and violence, which would have become a tragic norm for the Hutch family in finding themselves hunted by the Kinahan cartel. Meanwhile, Byrne's health starts to break down during the course of the following years after the murder of his son and increasing entwinement with the gangland feud. In the last weeks of his life, Byrne had been on dialysis because his kidneys were failing and in and out of hospital. He died on a Saturday night in 2023 in Talot Hospital. His death spelled the end of an era, the final curtain call of one of Dublin's most infamous crime lords. For a man whose life revolved around violence and revenge, death was the end of an era. Less than a fortnight ago, another nephew, Liam "Bop" Rowe, was confirmed to have died of illness, a high-ranking figure in the Kinahan cartel. The loss of these 2 men marked a turning page of what had been for so long an all-conquering Kinahan-Hutch feud, though their legacy in violence and bloodshed remains at the heart of Dublin's crime heritage. Comments on the rip I Notice announcing his funeral had been turned off when a spate of vile messages appeared on social media in the wake of his nephew's murder. Indeed, it was on that site that a comment left after his nephew's murder mocked the victim. In one that purported to be from Daniel Kinahan, one of the cartel's most senior figures, fueled the tension. The grave was in Mount Jerome Cemetery alongside his son David, but the third son, Liam Byrne, could not be there to bid his father final farewell. Liam Byrne was, in fact, the moving force in the Kinahan cartel during these days, and has been jailed under very high security conditions in the UK. He was at the time serving a pretrial detention for serious firearms charges when his father died. His absence from his father's burial was already a symptom of the continued crumbling of the once powerful and influential stronghold of the Byrnes family in the underworld. He was to appear before the court the following week with his co-accused Thomas Bomber Kavanagh, Jack Kavanagh, Sean Kent, and Daniel McLaughlin. The trial was to run for about 8 weeks with very serious firearms offenses allegedly committed. The case would possibly destabilize further parts of the remaining Kinahan power structure, an outcome with far-reaching consequences for the criminal organization. This is one of the most violent and protracted gangland wars Ireland has ever witnessed, with nearly 20 lives lost since it erupted in 2015. It is setting the Kinahans against their arch-rivals, Gerry the Monk, Hutch's reclusive but sharp-minded Hutch family. The Kinahans run a global cartel with massive power. The roots of this feud stretch as far back as arguments over drug deals and control of the profitable underworld of crime in Dublin. Over the years, tensions were brewing between the Kinahans and Hutches. But the killing of Gerry Hutch in September 2015 by associates of the Kinahan cartel triggered a chain of violent retaliations. Once a close ally of the Kinahans, Gerry Hutch fell out over a botched assassination attempt on Daniel Kinahan. His killing ignited war between the two families, who brought lethal tit-for-tat rivalry with them into the battleground, claiming multiple victims. The shooting at the Regency Hotel in February 2016 marked a turning point in the feud. The attack had been intended to kill Daniel Kinahan, but it ended the life of David Byrne, son of James Jaws Byrne. Gunmen masquerading as police officers and carrying automatic weaponry entered a boxing weigh-in, firing randomly. David Byrne was hit several times and died immediately on the street, a public and humiliating blow to the Kinahan cartel. The history of the Byrne involvement in the feud is very personal, as his son David was a key instigator following his demise in the violence. His loss became a galvanizing factor in his commitment to the cartel and its campaign of retribution. By 2016, Byrne was well established as a prime mover behind the Kinahan cartel's interests in Dublin. His choice of Michael Carroll for the hit on John Hutch was made with one reason in mind: increase the violence against the Hutch family. The attempt on John Hutch was just one of the attacks during this years-long vendetta, but it brought to the fore the naked savagery of gangland violence. How close the cartel would go to its ultimate goal is evident in that all three, John, his daughter, and his wife, could have been killed in their own home. As far as John knew, Gareth, John's son, was murdered already, and his brother Eddie was gunned down in his home, making John all the more aware of the fact that his family was systematically being targeted. This feud has greatly cost the family of both parties involved and the whole community that resides in the place. There is even a case wherein innocent people got caught in the middle of the war, such that a few neighborhoods in Dublin were terrorized with the constant threat of violence. For so long, the Irish police have been entrusted to contain all the bloodshed, which has entailed numerous investigations, raids, and arrests, in the hope of bringing some of these perpetrators to justice. The death of James Jaws Byrne, whose end came to illness rather than violence, is an important moment in the decline of the influence of the Kinahan cartel, but the shadow cast by the legacy of the feud that he helped fuel remains long over Dublin. Byrne's cycle of violence and that of others left an indelible mark on the city, as many loved ones are killed through reckless killings. In a similar development, in laying Byrne to rest beside his son David, the wider war between the Kinahan and Hutch families continues unresolved, yet perfectly still felt throughout the Irish underworld of crime. Its future may depend upon Liam Byrne's trial, as well as more investigations into the Kinahan cartel's operation. Already, a few of the most important players are in jail or dead, leaving open the question about the future of the gang's power structure. However, history has proven that the thirst for vengeance and control rarely abates when one kingpin falls in the underworld of Dublin's crime. The information about veteran gangster James Jaws Byrne helping mastermind a hit on Gerry Hutch's innocent brother is based on details from the Sun article. For more information, see here.